this relation with our Olmec area, has been a very important question for the beginning of Maya civilization. So there has been this debate. Some people say Olmec influenced the Maya. Other people say Maya developed independently without the influence from Olmec. That's really the heated debate that's still happening among the archaeologists. So we're going to look at this question too. But in this talk, what I want to show is that probably the truth is somewhere in the middle of those polarized debate. What I'm going to try to argue is that there was no direct influence from Olmec area to Maya area. But we still have to think about the importance of Olmec legacy. And another important point I'm going to talk about is that there were different levels of social inequality. Olmec people had kings, but in the Maya area, we don't see marked social inequality. So in this area, in Maya area, those large buildings were built by society without much social inequality as a result of communal collaboration. So I'm going to talk about this site of Aguada Fénix. That's in really the southeast part of Mexico. That's in the middle Usumacinta area. Before that, I'm going to talk a little bit about this site of Ceibal in Guatemala. Before I moved to Aguada Fénix, I started to work Ceibal. So that gives you some introduction to this program. So let's look at Ceibal first. Also, sorry, and then also at the end, I'll talk about the broad area, LIDAR area, covering all this Olmec area, and then part of Maya area too. So if we look at Ceibal first, what we found at this site is the earliest construction in this area. So this is the earliest building, ceremonial building at the site of Ceibal. This kind of formation with western small pyramid and the eastern long platform is called E group. So this formation of E group later appear in various Maya centers. So this is the earliest standardized form of ceremonial construction. At Ceibal, we found the earliest E group in Maya area and the entire Mesoamerica, which date to 950. We know that this was a very important ceremonial complex because we found lots of ritual deposit, particularly in the central axis of E group. There we found many caches that contain those greenstone or jade axes. So those are important objects for those people. They deposit those artifacts along the center line of E group. And then, so if we see this map of the site, so this is the central part, E group. And then around it, we find those large platforms. So those things were built in the early stage of occupation of those sites. So this E group and then platform arranged this along this north-south line is the broader ceremonial formation, which appear in various other contemporaneous sites. So archaeologists call this formation middle formative Chiapas parla. So this kind of shared formation must have been very important to those people. We see the distribution of this middle formative Chiapas parla in Ceibal, and then this Grijalva River in Chiapas. and then also all the way to Olmec Center of La Venta. So along this line, there must have been very important communication from Olmec area to this part of Maya area. Then there's another important river, this Usumacinta River. So this area must have been, along the Usumacinta area, must have been another important line of communication, but we didn't know much about this area. So that's why we decided to move to this area, Middle Usumacinta area, after Ceibal, to see what was happening in this area in this early period. So this is the close-up of Middle Usumacinta area. So this is the border between Guatemala and Mexico. This is Guatemala, this part is Mexico. So this is Usumacinta River. Ceibal is farther to the south. And then later period, this becomes an important part of Maya civilization. There's a famous site of Palenque here. We'll talk about much earlier period. The site of Aguada Fénix is here on this tributary of Usumacinta River. This is the San Pedro River. So if you see the site of Aguada Fénix, it looks like this. As we're gonna see, this is a huge site. Actually, this is the biggest construction in Maya area. But this site was not known. You may wonder why people didn't know about this large site. That's because if you go there, if you walk there, you don't see big pyramid. There's a big platform here, but if you see it, it just looks as a part of natural landscape. That's why people didn't notice on this site. If you see the aerial view, this is the view from west. There are causeways and then these artificial reservoirs, and then big platform is there, this part in the back. But again, it doesn't look like really a big construction. It looks like just a part of natural landscape. This changed when we used LiDAR, which is this technology that the Professor Massini talked about. Basically, you put the laser equipment on a small plane and then shoot laser. And then laser beam penetrate tree canopy and then bounce back from the ground. Then you can make a very accurate map of the ground level. Then at the site of Aguada Fénix, this is the view LiDAR map we got. So you see this beautiful rectangular platform here, which was not clear before, which is 1 kilometer long. This is an enormous construction, and then it has a very clearly planned form. And then to the west of it, we see the series of causeways, and then those reservoirs, which is the artificial, basically pond. And then farther to the west, we have another big platform. This is a modern road, and then this is modern airstrip, and then this is modern railway. And this round one is modern cattle water tank. But you can see lots of ancient construction too. So this is the perspective view of this site from the north. This is the platform. In the center, we have this huge igloo. To the north of it, this was the plateau. There's a big lamp, and then lamp is connected to this street or avenue. This goes up almost 6 kilometers and then connects to another complex. So that's associated, that's part of Aguada Fénix. So those are really enormous constructions. To show you the size, we can compare that to this famous site of Tikal. Tikal, we are looking at much greater construction. You see that this pyramid and the plaza, that's this part. Just looks small. Then outside of this plaza, there are many other pyramids and the causeway. If we put the plateau of Aguada Fénix here, it looks like this. Really, plateau itself is as big as this central part of Tikal. If we put the causeways and another plateau, you see that this Aguada Fénix is even bigger than ceremonial area of Tikal. So we did the excavation to see the date and the construction of this site. And let's look at this, these red dots excavation, but let's look at this excavation in the southern part. Here we did the excavation, this 4 meter by 4 meter area. We saw many of those floors, and those are different construction stage. And at this level, we saw very interesting features. So it looks like this. Basically, we saw a different color of clay organized in like a checkerboard pattern. Here you have black, here black, well, here white, and then here white, and then some stones here. We dug a little bit and get to next level. It looks like this. This is still black, this is white, and then this is red, and this part is white. If we see the profile, you see the accumulation of this different color of clay. Here you have red, white, brown, black, white, brown, red, white, and black again. So they put, to make this enormous construction, they did a very elaborate construction. These are part of fill. To fill up this construction, they made those colored clay, and then they put it in a specific checkerboard pattern. This is not just the decoration of the building, because this is the fill, and then after they filled up this area, they covered everything with this white floor. So during the construction, you see those different colors, but once construction is done, everything is covered by white floor, and then you cannot see it. So those things must be very important religious thing for which people put lots of work. Then we went even bigger, deeper to see the beginning of this construction. We had to sustain the wall so that the pit doesn't collapse. And then by making this kind of enforcement, we dug little by little to get to the bottom of the construction. Then we got to the depths of 8 meters. Then we hit the bedrock. On the bedrock, we see the Arias deposit, which looks like a middle with ceramics and lots of bones. So this is before the construction of the plateau. And then here at this level, you see this many colored field that we talked about. Then we took radiocarbon samples. Each of these represent one radiocarbon date. And then this pattern shows you the distribution of probability of date. So from this Arias deposit, many dates concentrate around 1200 BC. That's before the construction of plateau. That's probably the beginning of ceramics in this area. Then around 1000 BC, we see this construction of many colors. So by this time, there was a very substantial plateau construction. So plateau was constructed at least by 1000 BC, possibly a little bit earlier. In early part, we get the date of 900 or 800. And then plateau construction end by around 800 BC. Later on, number of people came back and they added a little bit, but that's small. Really, this major construction was done in a relatively short time period, from around 1000 BC to around 800 BC. If we see central part, we did this excavation. Here we have this E group, again, Eastern Pyramid, Western Pyramid, and the Eastern long platform. In the center line of this line, we were looking for ritual deposit because that's the area we found lots of caches at Ceibal. Then at Aguada Fénix too, we did find this cache with those green stone axes. This is the view of jade axes, those axes, and then this is a beautiful artifact, probably had a point, which was used probably as a perforator. Mesoamerican people use those perforator to do bloodletting. You perforate part of your body and then draw blood. That was very important ritual. So that dates to about 900 BC here, about contemporaneous with Ceibal. Then we did excavation in various other parts outside of this plateau too. If we see this area, we found this sculpture in this peripheral part. This is the sculpture, possibly a wild boar or jabalí. That's an animal that you see in this area. We named this sculpture Choco, which means a person from Tabasco in this area. So they depicted this animal in a naturalistic shape. Then we saw a series of auger tests because this is a big construction. We wanted to see construction pattern of various parts. Then we cannot do excavation all over the place. So a quicker alternative, we did auger test. But this part contains some stones too, so that was difficult. And we tried this machine auger, which people use to dig well in this area. So we contracted this machine auger system from the local operator. And then we did this augering with this machine. So this guy brought this machine and he put this shade, which was almost falling apart, which didn't give us much confidence, but it did work. So this machine goes down and then pulls up soil with this water. By catching this sediment, we can see what kind of fill was in this each level. And then when we hit bedrock, we can see the depths of bedrock. With this data, we reconstructed the construction volume of this plateau. This is not the entire site, just the plateau itself. Plateau had 3.8 million cubic meter of construction fill. That's an enormous amount of fill. You see that when you compare that to pyramid from later period. So this is Aguada Fénix is 1800 BC. Chical's pyramid about 780, much later. But this big pyramid, in terms of volume, it's only 220,000 cubic meter. This is another temple from Kupang. So Aguada Fénix is almost 200 times bigger than those classic period temples. If we compare that to the enormous pyramid of Teotihuacan, which is a huge city in a little bit later period in central Mexico, Aguada Fénix is still bigger. Pyramid of Sun at Teotihuacan is about half of Aguada Fénix. Before the discovery of Aguada Fénix, biggest construction in my area was this complex of El Mirador in Guatemala, La Danta complex, which has about 2.6 million cubic meters. So Aguada Fénix is bigger than this. So that confirms that Aguada Fénix Plateau is the biggest construction. Also, this is the oldest monumental construction and the biggest construction in my area. But this is not the biggest in Mesoamerica. There's a bigger construction, which is the San Lorenzo Plateau that we talked about, which is about 6 or 7 million cubic meters. So there was this larger building before Aguada Fénix in Olmec area. Interesting thing is that the similar sites are found throughout this area. They were not as big as Aguada Fénix, but they had a similar configuration. So Aguada Fénix was here. If we see another site, La Carmelita, it looks like this in this LiDAR. Just this rectangular shape. And then E group here, which is the same formation. So we decided to call this formation of Aguada Fénix and Carmelita middle formative Usumacinta pattern, which has this rectangular shape with E group. This is the view of Carmelita. Again, if you walk on the ground, you don't see really this shape. This shape only becomes clear when we did LiDAR on this site. If we see other sites, all those red dots represent a similar formation. This is the site of Buena Vista. Again, you see the perfect rectangular shape and the E group in the center. If we see this site of El Macabirero, again, you see perfect rectangular shape and then E group in the center. There are also smaller sites. This is much smaller. It's about 100 meters long, but it's same idea, rectangular shape, and then tiny E group in the center. So people replicated the same kind of ceremonial complex all over the place around the same time, 1000 to 800 BC. Then we expanded our research to broader area. To do this, we used the low resolution LiDAR that the Mexican government did. So it has a lower resolution, but you can still see those sites in this low resolution LiDAR. And then we did the study of 85,000 square kilometers of the area, including Western Maya part and then Olmec area. So this is the largest LiDAR study in Mesoamerica. So this is our study area. Aguada Fénix is here, Guatemalan border is here. This part is Olmec area. All those red dots represent this rectangular formation of middle formative Usumacinta pattern, similar to Aguada Fénix. Aguada Fénix is still the biggest, but this same formation expands through this entire area, including Olmec area. Other dots represent similar sites, little bit different formation, but the similar idea. Then another interesting thing is this site of San Lorenzo, which is located here in Olmec area. As we talked about it, San Lorenzo is older than Aguada Fénix, and then it has this big plateau. And then it has this colossal head, big stone sculpture, which probably depicts king's face. Before our study, LiDAR study, people thought San Lorenzo has this big plateau, but it doesn't have clear rectangular shape. And then here you see the series of possible mound, which seems to have amorphous shape. And then people didn't really pay too much attention to it. But when we analyze this LiDAR data, you see a little bit different picture. Actually, this mound that you see here actually has much rectangular shape. So in the map, it appears in this amorphous shape, but it did have clear rectangular shape. And then it was defining rectangular area here. So if we see the rectangular flat area in white, it looks like this. There's another series of mound. Here, mound goes to the east, so there's this wing or projection. Central part, you see this pyramid, but we know that that's later addition. So this is actually, San Lorenzo had the rectangular plaza, very similar to Aguada Fénix, but people really didn't notice it until we analyzed this LiDAR data. So if we compare that, we see the much similarity. Both sides, San Lorenzo and Aguada Fénix, has this rectangular shape. Those sites are on the same scale, those maps are on the same scale, same direction. And then interestingly, San Lorenzo has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 10 of this edge platform on this side, and then 10 edge platform this side, 20 of them. Aguada Fénix too, 10 on this side, 10 on this side, 20 edge platform. This is not coincidence. 20 is important calendrical number in Mesoamerican calendrical system. Then they have rectangular shape. And then in terms of axis pattern, they are very similar. San Lorenzo had this axis pattern here, 2 from west, 2 from north, 2 from south. Same pattern at Aguada Fénix, 2 from west, 2 from north, and then 2 from south. So this is the same kind of configuration. So Aguada Fénix probably followed this pattern originally developed at San Lorenzo and then formalized more. Also, we see similar pattern at the other side that we saw. This Buena Vista has also 20 edge platform and then this eastern projection. This Macabirero also have 20 edge platform and then this eastern projection. So all those sites shared similar concept. So let me summarize all these findings. So this gives you a chronological pattern. Here you see the dates. So from 1400 to 1200, San Lorenzo built this enormous construction plateau. And then this colossal head. So this is the beginning of this idea, this rectangular plaza. Then that's why I say that legacy of San Lorenzo was important. But San Lorenzo declined around 1100 BC. Then after that comes this Aguada Fénix, and then also the site of Ceibal. So some Aguada Fénix took this idea from San Lorenzo, but they made it much more formal. And then San Lorenzo didn't have E group, and then Aguada Fénix and Ceibal has this new element of E group, which may have come from other area of Pacific coast. Then La Venta came later. So Aguada Fénix ends about 800 BC. Around that time, La Venta started to emerge. And then La Venta has many mounds, and then this pyramid. Probably La Venta took idea from Aguada Fénix and then other related site, and then adapted it to this site. So it was not the influence from La Venta to this Maya area. Actually, La Venta took idea from Aguada Fénix and then other area sites. Also interesting thing is that there were different level of social inequality. Olmec area, they had kings, which are represented by those stone sculpture. At Aguada Fénix, we don't have anything like that. We have this kind of sculpture, which is very different from Olmec sculpture. Probably it's because Aguada Fénix probably didn't have marked social inequality. They didn't have powerful elite, or they didn't have kings. Then they built this kind of enormous plateau, which may be called horizontal monumentality. So this kind of horizontal large construction was probably good for those people without marked social inequality, because this is an inclusive space for gathering. This is an open space where lots of people gather and then do ritual together. So if we put all those sites in a chronological order on the same spatial scale, it looks like this. And then you see some change. So Aguada Fénix did this plateau construction. San Lorenzo did rectangular plateau, but they didn't have pyramid. Aguada Fénix, the contemporaneous site, formalized this rectangular construction and then added E group and then started to build pyramid. This is the beginning of pyramid construction in Mesoamerica. Ceibal is a little bit smaller, but represents similar idea. When we get to La Venta, they don't use that rectangular shape anymore, but you see this general northeast orientation. And then they started to emphasize pyramids and mound more. So that leads to later Mesoamerican construction in which pyramid became important. Pyramid becomes important because that's good for elite people. Access to pyramid were restricted, so it's not the inclusive space anymore. And then later kings used pyramid as a place of placing tombs of ancestors. So if we go back to this broad picture, we see now those early construction in various places, Peru, Near East, America, North America, and then now Maya areas too. So similar things is that they started to do this really early period before the emergence of kings. But there are some differences. Those Peruvian, some of them were like a Göbekli Tepe, and then Watson Break. That's a pre-agricultural. In case of Peru, it's an early agricultural period, but pre-ceramic. In case of Aguada Fénix, it's a time of early emergence of ceramics. So we see some similarity and differences. Particularly, we see this difference between Near East and Mesoamerica, we see the very different pattern. In Near East, settlements appear very early, and then right at that time, Göbekli Tepe was constructed. And then ceramics and the agriculture comes after that. And then King's dynasty came much later. In Maya area, Mesoamerica, we see much different pattern. Domestication of plants happened pretty early in Mesoamerica too, but after that, it took a long time before the emergence of sedentism, and then pottery, and then construction of those enormous centers. And then after this big construction, dynasty came very quickly in all over Mesoamerica. So this difference comes, this uniqueness of Mesoamerica probably comes partly from the characteristic of maize, which is main crop in this area. In case of Near East, like a wheat, that was very productive in the wild form. And then there's not that difference between wild form of wheat and then domesticated form of wheat. But in case of Mesoamerica, maize has to go through major genetic and the morphological change to become productive plant. Progenitor of maize, Teosinte, was really tiny plant, didn't have much seed. Then after it took thousands of years to get this large maize crop. So at this point, around 2000 or a little bit later, there was probably major change which was tied to this change in maize becoming productive plant. Once this intensive productive maize agriculture is established, later social change in Mesoamerica was very quick. Those monumental construction was done, and then almost at the same time, you see the emergence of pottery and then emergence of dynasty. So this kind of perspective gives us very important idea about importance of construction and then pattern of social change throughout the globe. And then the example of those early construction tells us that those big construction can be done in the absence of kings and the elite, which tells us about the important capability of collaboration among humans. Thank you very much.